All right. Good. Hopefully started in the cloud now. Going into cloud 9 for your T-41 Introduction to Security. Clients have important data and information that we need to look into and ensure that it is secure and protected. Ensuring appropriate security is an essential element for an IT professional's role. Can't just leave these things open. I think I've stated it before. What's great about Linux is it's locked down in it's like it's exactly like a firewall. It has implicit deny basically for everything, and you need to release or allow it to do certain things. It's completely locked down. Versus Windows is, hey, you're Windows. How you doing? You want to talk to me? My folders are here, here, and here. If you want to get closer and just go ahead and start guessing, Mike, this guy didn't put anything about how many times you can try before I stop you. Just, oh, you guessed the right one. Come on in. Basically, that's what's happening on in the Windows world. Therefore, we need to learn about the importance of security as well, the different types of viruses and social engineering threats that are obviously that's one of the weakest link there in security right now is social engineering, the threats that we need to address in a workplace. By the end of this session, our ultimate goal is to be able to explain why security is important element, describe the most common types of threats and vulnerabilities, identify the different types of malware and social engineering threats that are out there. We need to understand that it is very essential to apply the best practices in order to fully secure a workstation. It's not as easy as it sounds. As I said, these things are usually open to everything and you must lock it down. Hence, the invention of UAC. Hence, the invention of the user who loves to go ahead and change that feature. Either which way, we need to make sure is it locked down in a wireless or wired network? Because on top of we already got the user, the network itself can be an actual threat. There are two goals in securing networks resources. We need to look into protecting the actual resources themselves and to not interfere with any of the actual system's functions. Because as you see, if a firewall, just turn it on, put it on a network, configure the IP, do everything right, and don't put anything in that ACL, basically you did a great job. Nobody's going to be able to do their job. We need to understand, obviously, that whatever security functions that we add to these systems, it does not impede the actual work of the individual or the use that they have with the actual OS. Any questions or doubts so far? Anyone know some of the common security threats that are out there, especially if we're saying these users are going
Phishing
and using?
scams.
That would be a social engineering threat. That's very good. What other besides the main ones we said are either human or non-human. So you just said one of the of the human ones, which falls under the realm of what we say is social engineering threats. The other one we said they changed the name and now they call themselves something else. All of this software no longer is it called a virus protection. It's called a what?
Malware.
That's
Malware?
right. Because of the fact of the invention of these other things that is not a virus, malware threats is what is the major non-human per se threats that are out there. We're going to learn inside here those different within there. So we have the actual viruses. Inside the viruses, the key thing that we need to understand about a virus, can somebody tell me what a virus does to a human?
Makes them sick?
Makes you sick. Specifically, what do these viruses usually do?
They spread.
It replicates itself inside
They
your
can
cells.
spread, but they usually, when they do that, isn't it? Let's say, for instance, bad pick, but we can say cancer, right? Cancer kills the cells or whatever it is. I'm not a guy here, but when he technically when he's replicating himself or when he's going there, he's actually killing wherever he's going. He's not just going to be there because if it was, if anybody ever play that game of what's the game, the one that you can go pandemic or something like that. Anybody play that game? Nobody ever play that game. Anybody?
I played that game.
Okay. I don't remember the name of it. Do you know remember the name of it that you can create your own virus and all this stuff? Basically
Pandemic.
it's called the pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically the object of the game is to be able to eradicate the world. But if only the good ones that understand that if you're smart enough, if you do not look like a virus, you can actually spread much further before you give your payload. So now a virus must infect and hurt you. Malware can do whatever it wants, but its main concept is not to hurt or destroy. Let's go and dig. You have your armored virus. Exactly that. It's a guy with an armor on himself and whatever he's doing in there. Companion virus. We're going to get into the detail of each one. You have your multi-party. Woohoo! We got a party. We got your macro viruses, your polymorphic viruses, your phage viruses, your stealth viruses, your resident virus, your overwrite viruses. All of those are types of viruses. As for a worm, that's not a virus. As for a spyware, that's not a virus. Rootkits, not a virus. Trojans, not a virus. Ransomware, cryptoware, not a virus. As we said earlier, there is the other threat, which is a human threat. And in those areas, we're going to be learning is phishing, spoofing, shoulder surfing. You have tailgating. And we also have some other areas which we stated before. If people are bored enough, we have your password attacks, be that it is brute force or dictionary attacks. Those are the very dangerous ones, obviously, depending if I have the computer in my hand or if I'm going over the network. We still have more things to encompass inside these malware or these things that are going out there. You have your actually zombies out there. Anyone know who a zombie is? It
It's
sounds
like
just like what
it,
it sounds like.
isn't it like a computer that's part of I forgot what the like the bigger part like there's a word for it.
There
It's
is,
like
if it is a bunch of zombies together, there is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
word that replaces that. As for a
Yeah.
zombie, that would be um, equivalent to being, let's see how I can say this. A zombie can be brought to you by a Trojan. So the Trojan is coming in, he's in the Trojan horse, but he's not doing anything because the Trojan doesn't do anything except for the Trojan horse. He just brings you inside with the false pretense of something else. As for the zombie, he is waiting to be activated. The zombie or the botnet, which is a equivalent of many zombies, is basically waiting for attack, usually used for the distributed denial of service and or other types of attacks to someone else. Hence, your PC usually doesn't notice it what it is until it's too late. A man in the middle is that it's like a monkey in the middle. He will do certain ways to be able to accomplish this. 0 day attack. You also have violations, obviously, human error, violations of best practices. We need to understand, and the clients, we need to make them aware of these dangers in social engineering. Shoulder surfing is looking, as we didn't say that, but shoulder surfing is that, I think we did in another one, is looking over somebody's shoulder. It doesn't specifically mean that it has to be right behind you, and we'll get into the details of that. Phishing is a type of identity theft itself. Basically, you're trying to fish for information, be through email. Usually, you send out a plethora of them out there. Tailgating, which is obviously trying to get into an area where you shouldn't be. Those who wish to study, those are in pages 1187 through 1212 on the physical, 1071 to 1091 on the digital. Any questions before we start deep diving into this? You guys got a big
Yes.
breath?
Oh, sorry. Yes, could you
Go ahead.
please explain the zombies again? I didn't quite understand your explanation.
I will, yes, I will be going over each and every one that I just mentioned. In reference to a zombie is just like in the movies where it is a dumbified computer that is fully unaware of what's going on. It believes nothing is going on, so it acts like if it's completely normal until the moment that the person who has basically, usually what happens is an email or a forum, somebody clicks something which installed this payload. The user has no idea. The antivirus got no clue until the moment that the person, whoever it was that decided to put this zombie out there, goes and activates his network. He notices maybe he has over 100 bots or zombies out there. At that point, he opens up his control center, which has control of all the bots, and he basically targets whatever he wants. If he wants to target, for instance, Amazon, he'll make all of his bots go into Amazon and start asking stupid questions like, "What? Where is this? Where's that?" But the payload and the quantity in the amount of milliseconds that is happening will bring the circuit down. That is a distributed denial of service attack through a zombie or a botnet, right? To be able to learn and adapt is the key thing here. We have to have a growth mindset. These things, there is so many of them out there. There's so many different variants of it that we're only really giving you the, just like I said earlier, where there's 500 flavors of Linux, we only gave you the families that they fall under. So we're going to give you the family of these threats. And those are the what we just mentioned, the viruses, the worms, the spyware, Trojans, rootkits, ransom. All, these are just the families. Everybody's come up with things that come under it, but each Trojan has its name. Because a lot of the time, some of these Trojans have some other payload associated with it. All right. So let's go and dig in. Take a deep breath. Well, how about help me out here with this one?
Security overview. Information security is a collection of technologies, standards, policies, and management practices that are applied to information to keep it secure. It's vital to be worried about information security because much of the value of a business is concentrated in the value of its information. To fully understand why information security is important, one needs to understand both the value of information and the consequences of such information being compromised.
Thank you. Definitely, this is one of the things that can get us fired real quick. Information security needs to be taken very seriously to the point that unfortunately that if you do find something, you have to report it. I don't know how to break it to you guys, but welcome to IT. You're technically part of security. On top of securing these things, but if you see something that is not right on these computers, you need to fix it and or report it. The consequences of some of this information leaking out can be catastrophic to the point that it could cost millions for some of these companies. Questions or doubts? All right. As we mentioned a moment ago, we need to be able to identify the different categories. We have our malware, social engineering, password attacks, zombies slash botnets, man in the middle, zero day attacks, and your violations of best practices. Don't know why they didn't put that number one because that usually is one of the number one reasons you will get a malware and or any of the other ones. So Going back to me crying, let's go to error number one. No, malware. That means malicious software. Anything, anything that disrupts the computer's operations, your memory, anything. It wasn't meant to be there, right? Therefore, it will sometimes be just annoying. Not that it's going to do damage. Hence, why the ones that do damages are called viruses. Malware encompasses everything we see here. Questions or doubts? All right, let's go into our viruses. The viruses will cause stuff to go slow. Things disappear. Oh my God, where'd they go? Changes on program sizes, unusual operation characteristics, mysterious shutdowns, reboots, startups, and errors, lost access to system resources. Obviously, when programs load slow, that's a that's a key thing. If we know that we've been doing these maintenance on this server or on this computer, it has a plethora of memory, has a plethora of space, and yet this thing is all of a sudden running real slow. And one of the things that we can go to, anybody can tell me where can I go on a Windows machine to find out what are all the things that are open? Even though I can't see anything, as I said, can't
Task
physically
manager.
see anything. Thank you. That is correct. And if I don't see it there, where might find it or force the computer to tell me? If the GUI guy is telling me a lie, who can I maybe trust? The GUI is the
The
task
diode
manager.
or the
I'm
di
sorry,
The command prompt,
command prompt. I'll take that in Windows, definitely.
the services.
No, you are correct. You
Oh,
are
oh.
correct. That's exactly where I want to go. I want to go to that black screen. I want to be as close to who? The kernel. The moment that I'm in any GUI, I'm already in a shell that's on top of the shell of the OS, being the app. Whatever applet that I'm using is going to the shell of the operating system, who then has to talk to the kernel. It's got to do the same command that you're telling it inside the CLI. You understand? You right clicking and saying to kill a task, it actually goes and does the actual command. That was the ice cream truck. Let's pause here before we even dive a little deeper. Back to our previous program. As we stated, if you'll notice here, key things about this, it's going to do damage. It's going to slow you down. It's going to make things disappear and all of a sudden reappear or appear where they shouldn't be. It'll change the size of the program files. Because of this is why you'll see a lot of websites, they'll give you a hash. Anyone know anyone know why they post a hash right next to an exe? Does anyone know what a hash is?
isn't it
On
the
computers, please, on computers. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
isn't it that symbol, the hashtag, the number symbol?
That would be for you guys that love to tweet or whatever it is that you guys do nowadays. But hashing is a way for security of one way in encryption per se. There's only one way. There's no way to bring it back. All of your passwords are hashed. There's no way to unhash a hashed password. And hence, usually when, or that I'm aware of, all systems now pass by hash. They don't pass by password. And what it is, it's a way to ensure the integrity of a file, or in this case, your password. If the password or the file changes in any which way, literally, you put a space, you can open up a document, create a document, close it, save it, and you can go and create a hash of it, go and just put a space in between anywhere you like and hash that exact same file, you got another hash code, brand new hash code. Doesn't even look the same because if that's the purpose of this is to ensure that there's no way that you can actually somehow mimic and fix it back, because there is a program that's going to hash it and it's going to give you a value, be SHA-256 or whatever way you're trying to do it. And this is what they're talking about. The changing the size of the program is because the code has been altered and it looks and feels just like Word exe, but unfortunately the actual program itself has been altered. It is a virus. It runs Word, everything's working beautifully, but it's doing something else. It's probably destroying Word in the back, Word files that you have, documents, and God only knows what it's doing. Unusual operating characteristics. As we said, sometimes it starts doing things that it shouldn't do. The screen changes and or you hit save and it actually deletes. God only knows what it does. Mysterious shutdown. That one really is sometimes hard if you're not looking for these things, and sometimes if it is maybe a polymorphic virus and or a virus that's a stealth virus, some of these things are very well in hiding themselves, where the actual anti-malware isn't able to tell that it's there, and then it gets confused with maybe something that's hardware related, because obviously there's a lot of reboot. You might think that it's overheating and or other issues. Loss of access to resources is usually one of the beautiful things. You probably won't even get into some of your files. You get locked out completely, and or the device itself or the PC comes basically useless or unstable. Questions or doubts on the symptoms that a virus will give you? For instance, one of the things here, as you see, unusual operations characteristics, it might be that you're trying to get to another browser and site, or sorry, website, and it keeps on taking you or redirecting you back to that one. No matter where you go, it's back to that one. Yeah, viruses. What viruses do? Benjamin, help me out.
What viruses do? A virus, in most cases, tries to accomplish one of two things: render the system inoperable, spreads to other systems. How viruses spread? Many viruses will spread to other systems given the chance and then render the system unusable. If the system is infected, the virus may try to attach itself to every file in the system and spread each time the user sends a file or document to other users. Most viruses today are spread using email. Types. Each type of virus has a different attack strategy and different consequences. Armored virus, companion virus, macrovirus, retrovirus, polymorphic virus, phage virus, stealth virus, resident virus, overriding virus, and multi-parasite virus.
Multi-party. Woohoo! It's a
Multi-party.
party. Just remember, it's always a party. Not a very good party, though. You're not going to like that one. All right. Overall, armored virus. It is designed to make it very difficult to detect or analyze. It itself is protected with extra codes. It stops debuggers and disassemblies. Basically, when the actual anti-malware itself tries to, it will actually decoy itself in the process. It'll make itself look like if it's somewhere over here when the actual code is over here. This is how sophisticated this virus is. The key, obviously, is stopping most of these viruses is to be able to identify it very quickly, educate administrators. Now, one of the also reasons you'll run into that now, even administrators don't have admin rights. Does anybody did run into that yet? Even administrators do not have any more admin rights. Anyone? Come on, somebody's got to humor me.
I know that some people are in charge of certain types of servers. Like,
Agreed. Agreed. But even that guy, he does not have his ID, his regular ID does not have admin rights. It's just a regular ID. And that's the way they've been able to settle this thing. Is the problem was that even though we might have been able to educate the users, somehow the IT folks still are falling for it too. to the point that we've had some major spread worms and with viruses also included inside. For instance, the blaster worm, which was able to successfully do it because the admin was logged in, came in through SMB, and it got worse. Server messaging block, which means every server trusts itself. And since you were an admin and you had access, and maybe you had you're on a domain, it spread like wildfire. So now they've actually created an extra ID, maybe with a letter A in the front with a dash, and your actual ID. It's a different ID, but obviously they just mimic it so you can remember what your ID is and just put an A in the front with a dash. That makes it very difficult because now only when you're doing administrative tasks should you be using this ID. That is one way that they've been able to, in some companies, at least eliminate when it comes to administrators really propagating a virus. That's for your companion virus. That guy is, let me see how I can rephrase this one because sometimes people get confused with other ones. It actually attaches itself to an actual legitimate program. But the problem is that it actually creates a program with a different file name extension. This is completely different than the other ones that you're going to hear, but it sounds almost the same. The file may reside inside your system's temporary directory or in the actual legitimate location. The problem is that when the user opens, for instance, Word itself, it actually then calls upon this Word, but with the actual virus. Therefore, every time you open up Word, it starts infecting all of the Word documents that you have, hence killing the files useless, or worse, when you actually send it, it is itself has the virus, so then it spreads on the other person's computer and does the exact same thing, creates a fake word and starts all over again. Questions, doubts? So the armored virus is, his job is to protect himself. Remember, all these viruses have a name, and these are the characteristics. So there is some viruses that have 3 or 4 of these type of payloads in it. So don't get confused when you might have heard of some sort of virus that had 2 or 3 things in it. Doesn't matter. These are the key things that each thing does. Doesn't mean that it's the only way or the only thing that that specific virus that just came out has. Next one, macrovirus. This is obviously one great exploit that came out. Specifically inside the Office suite, they created macros, which is a way to be able to facilitate anyone's job to the point that you can actually send out an email, send out files with that email, and or you can do anything. You can delete the guy's drive, go ahead and connect to another computer, because obviously they didn't think very hard about it, and these are written in VBA, Visual Basic. Therefore, if you know Visual Basic, you will be able to run those commands, save it onto a given file. Macros are usually hidden in the background, unless if the person actually has that button activated to see macros. Sometimes people don't even know that they exist. Therefore, it itself, when you open up the document that comes in via email, when you open it up, you don't know what's going on, but it is doing stuff in the background. Retrovirus. This guy attacks or bypasses the actual antivirus software. That's his job. I understand I said anti-malware, so it's going for that guy, that part of him, because he is a virus. So that part of the anti-malware software installed, it actually can directly attack the antivirus software and potentially actually destroy the virus definition table or the database files that are in there. You understand that these anti-malware or antiviruses that are out there, all they have is really just a dictionary or a whole database of all the known viruses and their code. That's how they're able to stop it. There's nothing fancy about this. They just happen to know what it is. Therefore, when they see it happening, it is able to stop it because they know how to stop it. Just like we got now some flu shots, right? Same thing. Instead of waiting for the flu to attack, you just take a flu shot. Questions? Now it's on a retrovirus and his job or a microvirus's job. Micro, sorry. Polymorphic. This guy, he he sounds almost like the other guy, but let's look at him. He is trying to avoid detection. But how does he do it? Does this virus will attempt to hide from the actual antivirus. If frequently the virus will encrypt parts of itself to avoid detection, so that the file or that it is itself is encrypted. Can you can you read an encrypted file? Unless if you have the decryption key for it, right? Therefore, no. When a virus does this, it's referred to a mutation. The mutation process makes it hard for the antivirus software to detect the common characteristics of the virus itself. So he's meant to basically encrypt and avoid detection. This is, as you see so far, the polymorphic, he's not deleting anything, is he? That's his job is to keep on mutating. Remember those viruses, like they say, oh no, the virus mutated. But that's all it did. It mutated. Now you can't go and have the same flu shot because it mutated. Make sense? That's why the common cold can't be destroyed, says the scientist. I don't know. I have to believe him. I think they just want money. Phage virus. This one alters programs and databases. The virus infects all of these files, programs and databases. What do programs end with? Extension. What's the extension?
EXE.
Executable files. That's who he's looking for. See why they're writing it for specifically Windows? They're looking for that exe file because they know Windows loves having extensions at the end. Now, anybody want to take a wild guess what the majority of them that are database end with? The last two letters. You don't even have to think about the different types because there's different types. But what would be the last two letters? The majority of them.
DB.
Therefore, can I write something that's going to look for .exe or anything that has something with DB at the end? Pretty simple. If you know coding, it's very simple. And basically that's his job. He's there to alter the actual other programs and or infect these files themselves. The only way, unfortunately, get rid of it is by actually installing the program itself back on top. Problem is, a lot of times, if you miss a single file, so you deleted everything that you thought was infected, now you reinstall the program, and you miss one, sorry, it's gonna spread out like wildfire. It's gonna come right back out. Next one. Now, this guy, if anyone knows a stealth bomber, that's basically the same concept. Your stealth virus itself attempts, again, avoid detection. This guy, though, the polymorphic, we said he encrypts parts of himself. This guy, he actually does it by masking itself from actual other application. It may attach itself to the actual boot sector of the actual hard drive and stay in there, so nobody usually looks at the boot sector. There's nothing to do. It already boot. When a system utility or a program runs, the stealth virus itself redirects. Like, hey, there's nothing to see here. Keep on going. Nothing to see. Similar thing as you can think of those that love playing Halo and seeing the guy kind of invisible, or maybe the guys that saw Predator. Similar situation, just kind of puts itself transparent to the actual computer and or the actual anti-malware or any other program seeing it. This guy encrypts himself. This guy redirects. That makes sense. It's not encrypted, so eventually, if they do find it or somehow get it, it's able to see it. What he's doing, he's just tricking it, right? It ain't nothing to see. Just keep on going. Let's go. Now, here we go. This guy here, he just loves to reside. And where does he reside? In your memoria. And that is a very, very dangerous place to be. The resident virus is in the memory module itself. Now I no longer have to open anything. It is in there. Everything that comes. Anybody tell me what goes through memory? Is there anything specifically that goes through memory?
Ones and zeros.
Yeah, I'll give you that. But it is that just ones and zeros? Maybe once in a blue moon, a one and zero is gonna fly by. Maybe when I hit save.
No, it's a constant stream.
Correct, right? It's always that refreshing of my mouse, whatever it is, whatever is the now or the then now or the now then is flying through there. Therefore, every single file and or whatever is being opened is up to this guy. He can get in there. Because of the fact that I'm inside this memory, you're going to come in here and I can interrupt the flow of zeros and ones and attach myself to all of it. There's no admin. I'm not altering the files. I'm already in here. Nobody knows I'm in here. So all I got to do is just send my zeros and ones while everything's coming in. Nobody's going to know what the heck is going on. It's coming from me. The main memory control MMC is I'm going to send it to him, and that idiot just keeps on forwarding anyways. He doesn't care. Hence why the NX bit and or the other things that are inside these new processors to try to figure out what's going on. Questions or doubts on a resident virus. Very, very dangerous virus. Overriding virus. Effectively, it destroys the original program itself, typically overriding the data in the system memory. Typically, doesn't mean it resides there. Typically, the users will need to remove the offending virus and then reinstall original programs again. Obviously, same thing. This can be a major issue depending what you did get rid of or didn't get rid of, and depending on the program itself, it can be difficult to bring it back up if you didn't have proper backup, and or if the whatever it is the files that you need after you usually install any program, Word for instance, and maybe it killed all the files pertaining to Word, you may have a problem. His job is to overwrite completely and not allow you to use any of it. Multi-party. That basically is that we have a party with viruses. It attacks your system in not just one vector. He'll do it by infecting the boot sector, executable files, destroy all application files, you name it. If I just said it, he can do it, depending on how bored the guy is and created the multi-party virus. In other words, it's any of the guys that I just talked about mashed together. Questions? Worms. Now we've just left the viruses. The major difference, as I stated several times before anything here, major difference between a virus and any other malware is the damage that it brings to that specific computer. That computer, the one that has the virus. Now, let's go. Worms, and more worms. It obviously is different because it can actually reproduce itself. It itself can reproduce. It's not going to go and destroy and kill while it's reproducing. It just reproduces itself, makes more of me. I don't need to go and attach myself to something to kill it, like cancer. I'm just replicating myself like a bunny or a worm in this case. Does that make sense? A virus attaches itself and kills like a cancer and stays on that cell. Needs something to attach. I need to grab. A worm, I don't need anything. I'm just going to keep on replicating asexually here as much as I can. However, it is possible, obviously, to contain a worm from delivering a virus to a target system if we're able to catch it and stop it from spreading. By nature and origin, worms are supposed to propagate. That is their jobs. The most of them, though, used to spread by memory and bred inside the RAM itself to target other ones. But now, usually, they're in the TCP/IP world, in your emails, internet services, social media sites, uh, these forums. God only knows how many different ways that they're in these little clickbait locations. Obviously, as soon as they get into your computer, they're meant to propagate over the network, not only to propagate inside your computer. No damage. You hear damage? You see or hear damage so far in the word worm? Does it say that it eats files? Does it say that it's going to stop allowing you to do anything? No, right? All right. Spyware does exactly that. Usually, spyware and adware is encompassed together. Various thing is obviously adware just annoys the living daylights of you with unsolicited pop-ups and or advertisement, while spyware itself is usually uh, trying to listen and or spy on you. It downloads other programs. It can do plenty of other things in the background. Wait until you go to a specific site to send your ID and password, your credit card information. Spyware itself can actually be self-replicating like a virus or a worm. Questions or doubts on spyware or adware? Trojans. This is my favorite guy. This guy is basically 99.99 chance the user did it without noticing. A lot of the times it's one of those sites where the people, oh my God, I got a virus. And it reads and it says, oh, you piece of junk, antivirus, can't see it. I have the best one here. And I know look at this. Look at the list. I'm reading your drive. Look at all this. And I told you Windows is so trusting. Here's a list of stuff that just happened to you. Do you want my antivirus or anti-malware? Of course I do. This piece of junk. Let me take this off. Let me install yours. There he is. He's in. This is as far as he goes. That is a Trojan. He is to mislead you to go ahead and install another program. That is his job. His job is not to do anything else. He might even open up a port to wait and listen for that zombie to be awoken. That would be a zombie, not the Trojan. The Trojan, all he did was do what you said. You believe that I was an anti-malware? I installed. Just open the back door back there, but don't worry about the draft that's coming in. Keep on going. Questions or doubts? Okay. Your rootkits. Now this guy is scary. This guy gives root. Everybody remember who's root? Who is root? Please, please, who is root?
The administrator.
Administrator on Linux.
He is the administrator of Linux, and any rootkit will give you administrative rights to a computer. That is the main thing we need to understand what a rootkit will do. Won't even appear. Look at that. Connections may be established and available that don't even appear on a net stack. Why? Because I am in the root. I am the kernel, basically, at that point. I'm in control. So what I say goes. I don't care what Windows is telling you. I'm telling you, you've got to do this. Who's this boss? Me or him? Well, that's right, sir. Sorry, sir. I think they have next tape. No. Basically, that's what's going on. There's nothing you can do. Obviously, many rootkits are made to get around the antivirus, anti-spyware programs. If you're not up to date, there is some of them that are still sneaky enough to stay out of here. But the best defense is hopefully educating these people, besides monitoring what the system is doing to be able to catch a rootkit in the process. Questions? Doubt. Ransomware, not to be confused with cryptoware. Although ransomware can be encrypted many of times, but ransomware is a type of malware that usually, if they want to really get your money and they believe that you might be a little bit savvier than the other people, they will encrypt your drive. A lot of them just go and ask for it and just don't even bother on encrypting your drive and tell you that they have, and or they'll send you that little FBI thing warning that you have to send them some type of money or you're going to jail or some crap. That's basically ransomware. Doesn't have to really encrypt your drive. It may, if they are really sophisticated and really want your money, they'll put even the thing that says, "Hey, you got to send me Bitcoin money here." And as soon as you pay, then they give you the decryption key to be able to uncrypt your drive. Questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. How is it that hospitals always get hit by those?
By
Ooh.
ransomware?
Maybe not always, but I remember hearing there was a hospital where this happened in the
Oh,
US.
Wanna
there's
cry.
yeah, WannaCry. You're talking about WannaCry. But remember,
Wanna-
those WannaCry went viral everywhere. It wasn't just it was Windows, wasn't it? Isn't it WannaCry for Windows?
Yes,
It
and
was
it was
Windows.
specifically attacking XP, Vista, and certain Windows 7s that weren't updated on a security patch. And the reason why most not hotels, hospitals were attacked is most of them still use
Most of
XP.
them, that is true.
XP.
That's the reason why you saw it. It's that, remember that thing that I told you about? Programmers, money. You're talking about a hospital system. Could you imagine that hospital system, them ever so often trying to always upgrade it and paying for those people to upgrade it? Buku bucks. And if you ever see a lot of the memes, I think is what you guys call it now, memes out there of security, where you see the guy of the security department crying for money and they're like making fun of him and stuff. And then until the actual security thing, and then all of a sudden they're ready to write $1 million check to the guy. That's the reason why, because unfortunately they don't take it serious, and they don't go and update these patches on these holes. And WannaCry was a major hole that was out there, and hence those people were the ones that got hit the most. But WannaCry did hit a lot, but I'm aware of WannaCry was pretty bad. And I think it was it 2016, 2017, something like that. It wasn't that long ago.
I think it was 2015, but 2016 is when it hit really hard because the code was used
Oh
from
yeah, that was the
uh,
funniest part too. Yeah, it wasn't like if it was a patch. It was like a patch from last year, May. You did. You're right. I remember that. It was like a thing from like the year before, and they still, yeah, that was creep. That was, yeah.
patch management is important.
Hence the violations of security best practices were really wrong there. Let's get into our second area. So we just went into the actual area of just the malware per se. Let's get into the actual social engineering. This is the process in itself where the user is our line of defense. No longer can we give you a sophistic in points of, we even have what NIPS, we have the heuristic learning, anti-malware. We have a whole bunch of software out there, right? Slash hardware, software, right? Depending on what we have to be able to try to protect us. Social engineering, I don't care what firewall you put up, right? Doesn't matter. Put up a firewall. Is that going to help me from a phishing attack? Anyone know what a phishing attack is?
No, it will not, because usually you have to click a link for a phishing attack, and that'll could get you the link clicking it could bypass your firewall.
Hmm. Spoofing, no, that in itself, we're going to learn what it is. There's obviously many different ways of spoofing. You also have shoulder surfing itself, and in interesting ways that they do that. And lastly, you have tailgating. These are just, I would say, the skim of social engineering. As we said, so phishing itself is a mass email. This is an email that goes out to the masses. These are the ones that you'll see that usually you're like, how the heck did they get my email? And it is what is going on. It is actually sending it a clever way, broadcasting it to the domain kind of thing. So let's say ups.com. So it'll send it to all variations of at ups.com. So it can broadcast it to the whole ups.com, for instance. So everybody that has a ups.com email receives it. Anybody that has a Gmail gets it. It's to the masses. Now, there is some other phishing uh, types of emails that are out there, but in the thing is, all of them are, their intent is exactly the same thing. They're trying to get the user to give them information, be their username, password, account information. For instance, they might send you a email saying that your bank, somebody just tried to log in, reset it now because you're in trouble. Obviously, hopefully you don't click on that link. You just go straight to whatever website that you have your banking information, log in and see if it's true. Never, even if it looks legitimate to be your bank, you'll be surprised how close it is to being your bank, and it's not. Then a lot of times people even fall for it, and it's at their work email when they don't even have their work email on their bank, which is scary. Like, what are you doing clicking? You don't even have this information in there. Now, can someone tell me what would be the two other forms of phishing? There is phishing to the masses. There's two more.
Whale something?
Whaling. For those that love video games, they'll know what a whale is. You've got to know what a whale is. If you don't know what a whale is, then you've never been gaming seriously.
Big spender, a big spender.
Big spender, big cool bucks. And in this case, it is a big spender, a CEO, director, somebody that's high up inside this company, and you're whaling. You're looking directly there because if you can get their ID and password, you've just got a whale. Versus there's one more, which is a smaller target. Whaling would be going for the big guy. Now, this guy, you really,
Spear fishing?
that is correct. Spear phishing is actually now going maybe for the board or maybe for a department or for a specific area. You're actually targeting a small group of individuals, not one, not the big whale. I'm going for just this group of accounting or maybe finance or maybe IT because I happen to know what's the IT people and I somehow want to get admin rights, for instance. Any questions on phishing and what it is? Spoofing. Spoofing is that. It's a human way of doing it. You could either do it with a access point. You can do it by spoofing your MAC address, your IP. You can spoof even with your username and passwords. To spoof with an email address. There's many spoofing, even sites, websites. Questions or doubts on the word spoofing? Pretending to be who you're not. Not like a virus, because this is someone that's doing something. There's someone there waiting to do something. A virus is an automatic attack. Questions?
How would you spoof the MAC address?
Ooh, so many ways. Too many ways.
Windows itself allows you just to go in to your actual card, and I'm not going to tell you the entry, but you can go in there and look for something in there. And if you remember what a MAC address is and you read very carefully, you might actually find which is the entry. And you could actually put whatever MAC address you want. And it will say that that's the computer's MAC address. That's one easy way of doing it. Questions? Shoulder surfing. Now, this guy is a little tricky because everybody always believes that it happens to be that somebody's right behind you. Yes, somebody technically must be behind you. I'm not sure if you guys seen plenty of these little movies out there. The guy could be literally a mile away with a special binocular and looking, piercing through your window and can see you entering the ID and password. Another thing that a lot of the CEOs and anyone that has an office, it must face the actual door. You can't put the back to the door. You must have the actual desk to the door because of the fact to avoid this. A lot of the times, companies are buying privacy filters for all these head honchos or anybody that's dealing with PII. Anyone remember what PII is?
Personal information.
Personal identifiable information. Yes. Thank you. Questions, doubts on shoulder surfing. They're basically trying to get you to basically give you give them information without you knowing. They don't have to be right behind you. As long as they can see. What's one way that I can do it and I'm not even there, but I can see your desktop and I'm surfing? Once again, I'm not in your computer. I haven't hacked your computer. I'm not there. What can I do? And I'm shoulder surfing. I'll give you a
Cameras.
clue. Thank you. I was about to tell you. I'm using it right now. The camera. Simple as that. Camera can be placed right behind somebody's desk. One of those little pin cameras, those little tiny ones. And you're shoulder surfing. Questions, doubts? As long as you can see the person's screen, it's equivalent to shoulder surfing. Now, there's two guys here that are almost identical. You have your tailgating. Your tailgating is that you're basically right behind somebody's butt, but in this case, not in traffic. In this case, you're actually doing it on purpose. And since a lot of people at lunchtime, at break time, in the morning, or in the afternoon, they're usually in a hurry and they're not paying attention. What this individual is doing is counting on that you're not paying attention. Hence the word tailgating in here. That is the reason why a lot of these Fortune 500s have spent the time on the word challenge. You must challenge anyone that's tailgating. You must challenge anyone not wearing an ID. Although that person, you've seen them 500 million times, they could have been let go by HR and they can be walking into this building to do harm. Therefore, tailgating is usually a way of getting into buildings for these type of individuals, be that it is a old employee or a person that's trying to access, just because the reason is that you went, you scanned, you open the door, you let it go, but you didn't pay attention behind you. Hence, the creation of a man trap. A man trap is made to avoid that situation. A lot of times that happens in train stations where you see that little man trap, which is literally like a little mouse wheel that only allows one person at a time to go through it, to the turnstile. In this, though, in a man trap, sometimes it is two doors, one door to let you into that little room that's in between two rooms. You have to let the other door close before the man trap allows you to go into the next spot. Hence, eliminating tailgating, because now you have to be fully aware that you're letting somebody to come into this special little room in between you and the data center. There is one more way where the user is actually allowing this to happen. Now it's not that I didn't notice, I'm actually telling you to come in. That's called piggyback, not tailgating. If you're riding me and I know you're coming with me, I am basically letting you jump onto my back and I'm crossing you across as a piggyback. Tailgating means you're on my butt and I didn't notice. I'm just too busy and I'm walking in with you. Password attacks. You have a plethora of ones, but in the main ones, we have the brute force, dictionary, rainbow tables, and your hybrid attacks. There is obviously well-known applications in Linux that allow you to do this and allow you to even facilitate to create more words. As for your brute force, it is exactly that. It could be an online brute force, or my favorite, as I always say, if you let Diego get the computer in his hands, good luck on keeping him away from the data. Brute force is one of the most famous ways to get in the offline mode. What's great about this is a lot of these companies allow you to guess your password as many times as you want offline. This means that you're not on the network. So all I have to do is assure that this computer does not get on a network domain, and I just keep on attacking, even if the drive is encrypted. If the drive is not encrypted, all I got to do is just take it out and put it into mine. And I have all of your data. Hence why they encrypt cell phones, hence why they encrypt any mobile device. Because the moment that the person has the actual physical drive in their hands, I just attach it to a Linux and I'm in. Or I even attach it to any other Windows PC and I'm in. Online brute force, obviously, that requires obviously to you to be online. And since there is a set sort on the domain, it'll see and log and give information to the domain that to the point that it'll actually send a disabled for that account and now you're successfully locked out. Depending on the lockout timer, sometimes it's even forced where now the user has to call the help desk to be able to facilitate the process of enabling their ID. No questions on that. Let's go to the dictionary attack. As in any other dictionary, that is a big, humongous book with of words. That's what it is. Humongous book of words. These attacks are obviously most often attempts to crack encrypted passwords by encrypting each word that's in the dictionary file and using the same algorithm to use to encrypt the actual password. So if we know that that operating system is using SHA-256, it does that. It'll go and encrypt all the words in there and to be able to compare it to the value that's in the hash. Remember, that's one reason, well, I'm not going to say that, but that's one main reason why a lot of these softwares that are out there, I'm not going to say which ones are out there, he knows which one I'm talking about, is able to go and actually just change your password because there is a table that contains your password. Hence, if I come up with a Linux OS and I actually delete the entry in the table and only leave the ID, so what's your password if it's empty? Blank. Now I'm in. I got rid of the hash code. I left the database intact, but I deleted the entry or that column entry of what your password was. And now I'm in. I don't even need to know your password because I left it blank. All I did was just alter that entry. Scary, isn't it? Questions or doubts on a dictionary attack? So he's grabbing the dictionary and he then hashes it to be able to. So he's got the words. I'm repeating this because you're gonna see there's some things that sound the same. Don't think because I think you're dumb or anything. Just pay attention to the key words. What's going on here? There's an actual word and he's hashing it. So I gotta know what I'm gonna hash to. Right? Here we go. Rainbow. Now this guy is almost the same thing. Rainbow table, though, is a very large database that has every permutation run through a hashing algorithm so that the hash can be looked up and cross-referenced back. So I now it's similar to the dictionary table, a dictionary attack, but now my whole dictionary is already hashed. The whole dictionary is hashed. This rainbow table is much bigger than a dictionary table because now you got the actual words, plus you already have all of the hashes. And a lot of times it's like a database that has I don't know how many rows or columns going across. But what happens is in a rainbow table, it will stop. The program will stop and say, boom, this is the place. Now you got to go back and look up the rainbow table to find what row it was that it told you it was, and try every password that's on that line. There'll probably be 5 or 6 passwords for that line, depending on your rainbow table and how it's set up. Sounds almost the same, but different. Do you see the difference or no? All right. Usually rainbow tables are very, very large, and obviously they're very, very effective because now instead of one at a time, I'm looking at that line entry like I told you. Dictionary is one entry at a time where it's hashing it and comparing. Here he has all the hashes, he has all the words, and he's going through every entry until he runs into that hash. It's much faster in that case, but it's much bigger, right? All right, hybrid attack. Obviously, that does dictionary entries and brute force. That's what it means. Hybrid. You're doing both. Usually, uh, if you know there's a good likelihood that the employees are using sometimes a company name or derivatives of the names, or what can Brown do for you, for instance. God only knows why they use the word Brown when everybody knows UPS is Brown and somebody uses Brown as their password, for instance, as an example. Questions, doubts? So that means I would probably use the word Brown, which was coincided with my dictionary. So I know that Brown is somewhere in there. And then in the dictionary, maybe the word God is in there. So Brown God 1 came out to be a password that this hybrid attack came up with. Because it's using the dictionary and it's using a well-known base part of passwords that people in this company tend to use. Questions? More than one vector coming in.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So if this kind of attack happens, is it happening during the password is entered, or once the password is saved, or how is it done actually? Because I like saving passwords on my computer.
No, what you gotta have to understand, unfortunately, your password is saved. It's the sad part. Your computer actually saves the hashed password to a certain spot so that it can give, it doesn't save the text. In other words, let's say, I'm gonna put a name, that the God Forever One was your password. It'll actually just put the hash as your password saved on a table because that's the information that it's able to compare. Now you're not on the domain, right? You left the company, you're outside, and you're not on domain. It's able to compare that hash to your password when it hashes it and say, I'll let you in. So it doesn't have to use the domain at that point to authenticate you. That's why you'll notice that whenever you log on in any business computer the first time, not only is it creating a brand new profile, but it takes a little bit longer just to be able to authenticate usually. Yes, I know it creates a brand new profile, but even that point where it's saying welcome, sometimes you'll notice that it's much faster after you actually have already logged on compared to the first time you log on to a computer for it to react. It's in milliseconds, but I assure you, if you don't have a domain controller in your building and it's all the way on the other side of the world, you'll notice how slow it is before it lets you in. Questions or doubts? So these
Okay,
things
so
don't
if I
care about
understood it
when you,
correct,
they don't care about what these are attacks that they don't care about when you have or have not saved your password. These are attacks. These are people wanting to get in and they don't care. They see your computer on the network or they physically have your computer in their hands. It's them wanting to attack. So they're not waiting for you to do anything. Versus, for instance, spyware is spying on you and waiting for you to, with a keylogger, to be able to get your password. Here, they don't care what your password is. They're just gonna try every toolkit that they have in their hands to get in. Make sense? Hopefully.
thank you. That helped.
Here, usually it doesn't matter what your password is. These are people who have come up with very clever ways. And if you look at your Kali Linux, you'll see what I mean. There is certain tools in there. It's not needed for this one, but you could play with it afterwards. Next, zombie slash botnet. A bot is a type of malware that installs itself on large number of computers via email, downloads from websites, Trojan horses, or even shared media. Anybody know what a shared media is?
Thumb drive.
That's a shared media, right? We have to be careful of what we're giving each other because sometimes we may be giving ourselves an actual zombie. Once installed, the bot's obviously able to just sit back, wait until the hacker's server controls are activated and ready to go. Hence the word zombie. Or in Spanish, a lot of people like to call it un títere. A títere is, anybody want to translate? Anyone ever see in the old days, there's a little string guy that you have him on the strings and he's always,
Like a
Pinocchio. Pinocchio.
puppet.
There we go, a puppet. A puppet on a string, in other words. So that's what basically a bot is. It's basically waiting until the actual guy decides to do stuff on the server controls. You won't even notice that it's there. It's just waiting, dormant. And when he sees that he has enough collections on his terminal, then he'll just go ahead and wake everybody up to be able to do his attack. Usually it's not to attack you. The purpose is not to do anything to your computer except for take control and create a denial of service attack, send out a whole bunch of emails, do whatever I feel like doing while you're not using your computer. I can use your computer. Questions, doubts? And if you notice, is it destroying any files on your disk? Is it slowing your computer down? No, not doing anything to your computer.
I think it should slow the computer down, doesn't it?
No. Because see, let's go through the steps now. Here I am. I went to this website, and I just clicked a Trojan horse installed itself with a zombie payload. Boom. Yes, my computer went a little slow. I asked for something to be installed. It got installed. Back to normal. No memory is being used. No CPU power is being used. Nothing's happening. About 6 months down the road, the guy that originally put that Trojan horse decides that he's got enough bots out in the network. Now he decides that he is going to attack Amazon.com. If I go to Amazon.com normally, does that slow down your computer? If I go as a regular user to Amazon, no, right?
No,
Now,
no.
if a million computers at the same time go to Amazon.com and ask for something, who's getting hurt? The 1 million computers by themselves asking for one simple question, or Amazon who just got a million requests in less than a nanosecond?
Amazon.
A denial of service attack just got hit in 1 nanosecond to Amazon by this botnet. It's coming from so many different directions that it's unable to notice what just happened, and there's no way that it's able to stop it. So it successfully is attacked by these zombies who the person didn't even know that it happened. Everybody that just attacked had no idea that they just attacked because it was just a simple query to that Amazon server. Make sense? Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Guys, I just heard my ice cream truck. We went just 5 minutes over. We'll pause it here. We'll be back at continue then with the zombies and botnets. As we stated, a bot is one zombie, and a botnet is many of them together. Purpose of this is for denial of service attacks. Lazaro, would you happen to have that site so that we can show them what a botnet looks? Should still be out there whenever you have a chance.
Which website?
Was it you or Justin? The one that we, if not, I can send you the
I'm
one
pretty
that's
sure it
in
was Kelly, but I can look for
Kelly.
it.
Well, I think I send it. I send it to you by thing. Can you download it or send it to yourself by email? I send it in the little channel. I think I did.
Let me see.
Thought it was in the channel.
Was it on Slack?
No, in the phone one.
Phone.
Whatever you call it. WhatsApp you people use. I don't know, man. I don't know these.
I'll take a look
little,
here.
if not, I'll post it now. I know I had it somewhere on my phone. Messing around with that.
Oh, I think I found it. It was Kelly.
Yeah, I just sent it to you just in case.
Yep, that's it. I can look it up.
All right. Cool. Any questions or doubts on a botnet or a zombie?
Nope.
Continue then for the man in the middle attack. The man in the middle is basically that. There's a man in the middle. The hacker is there to be in the middle of the actual communications. There's several ways that it can actually do this, be that it's doing it maybe through an ARP or an evil twin, or it might just obviously mess with it in other ways. Either which way, it has to be somewhere in the middle. And a lot of the common ways is that the hacker himself will obviously give false ARP information. If anyone remember what ARP does, that's address resolution protocol, if I remember correctly, what it means, or at least those letters. And what it does, it converts your MAC address to an IP on the LAN. No need for me to go and look around because you're on the LAN. I need to know where in this world in the LAN are you, not in the WAN. Where in the LAN are you? So in that case, since I am in the middle and I'm able to poison both of you and let you think that each of you is talking to each of you, you're actually talking to me. You can see my beautiful drawings as always. So here's your little PC1 and here's your little PC2. They're both on the LAN, right? No need to do anything except for look for what your MAC address is, right? Now what happens is this guy in the middle, he gives and stops and basically says, this is PC2 MAC address. Go ahead and talk to me. All right, everything's beautiful. I will talk to you. Same time, he sends as PC1 the exact same thing and saying, hey, you, I want yada, yada, yada. Okay, yada, 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 back to PC1. Since he was really the one that established the communication, these two idiots are trusting the communication. Hence the word man in the middle. And the evil twin, that one is very dangerous. Evil twin, anyone remember what that is? Evil twin is usually a actual access point to make it look like an actual legitimate access point when it's not. So for you people that love to put that little check mark that when I am close to this Sid, I want to connect. Go ahead. I trust this guy. That name, I know. I want to. Thank you. And there you are. He's able to actually eavesdrop into all the communications since he has control, or she, or God only knows who's out there. They basically be able to hack the actual traffic. Questions or doubts? All right. Your 0 day attack means exactly that. It is 0 day vulnerability that is discovered, and obviously there is a might be a patch that exists, or there is no patch that exists. Hence the vulnerability of 0 day. Sometimes, as we heard, like the WannaCry, there was a obviously patch, and no one did it, or the majority of them didn't do it. As for the actual preventing of this, basically monitoring and knowing, obviously, well-known communities where they're keeping track of that. There's forums for security people to be able to keep yourself updated on the latest and greatest that's going on, and obviously to keep track of these 0 day exploits, because as anything, hackers love to brag about an exploit that they may have found, and or the actual operating systems that are out there are giving themselves up to be able to make sure that you get yourself patched. As for the honeypots or honey nets, those are the actual computers who mimic. So you might have a web server out there, a legitimate ups.com or generation.org server. What you'll do is actually go ahead and create a brand new server that looks identical, has most likely all the files that they're looking for, but in this case, it is not the one that they really need to get into. This honeypot or honeynet, if it is a, just like we heard earlier, if it was a bot or a botnet or a zombie slash botnet, this is the same concept. Honeypot is one, where honeynet is many of the honeypots in one network. This is again to mimic an actual network with many different servers so that if the hackers wish to go ahead and hack, feel free. Obviously, there's usually some type of monitoring forensic information to try to obviously track who they are and keep them busy to not attack the actual things. Obviously, new 0-day attacks are usually announced on a regular basis. And as anything, if we keep ourselves up to date for many other things, if we do it daily and on time, whatever is the latest and greatest, a lot of this anti-malware that's out there, software, they do their best to keep themselves up to date. It used to be almost weekly, or God only knows, I think at one point monthly, but now it is daily. I mean, I'm pretty sure you guys never heard of Stinger, but that Stinger was one of the solutions. I forgot if it was McAfee or who. As I said, sometimes it was almost a month before you get a actual update. So what they would do is when these little 0-day attacks would come out, they would just, instead of sending out an update, they will create a stinger. And then that stinger, it was is an inoculation for that given virus. Questions or doubts? All right. As for our next area where human intervention is the problem, violations of security best practice is one of the easiest way that anyone can get in. If you fail to do what is the minimum security measures, you're going to have a lot of problems. So what do we do and what has HR done to be able to facilitate this process? They've considered, or whoever God only came up with, the AUP, which is the acceptable use policy. It has details of plethora in there. Careful, obviously, no one can force you to sign this without you wanting to. If you want to read it, you can read it. If you refuse, a lot of the problems is that they won't even hire you, so you need to sign it. Therefore, you are encouraged to obviously read and be very, very, very educated on what you can and cannot do with this. Key thing, personal things, as easy as that. Don't do it on there. You'd be surprised how many people do dumb things that they shouldn't be doing in there, including watching sports. Yes, you know, Brazil Cup World was in Brazil. Of course, nobody's gonna work. But then again, that's why HR then puts TVs in these break rooms so that you can go on your break time, or in case of Brazil, throughout the day, while whenever Brazil was on, you were allowed to basically not work and go over there, but you're not allowed to go and stream the actual game. That you were not allowed to do, but that can get you fired, which did. Questions or doubts on actual acceptable use policy? That's the policy to say that you didn't know is not acceptable. As soon as you say that, HR pulls out that little paper that you signed and goodbye. Questions? All right. Which of the following are common viruses that can present threats to clients and their data? A resident virus, a phishing virus, a direct action virus, an overwrite virus.
Resident.
Everyone agree
Phishing.
on that one? Okay, we
Hmm.
have one vote for phishing, one vote for resident. Okay. Anyone else want to chime in? We got one vote for resident, and we got one vote for phishing.
Override.
Now we got to vote for override. Now we got a good thing going on here. Let's go. Anybody else want to chime in?
How about we play a game of let's eliminate things to make it a little easier?
And nobody want to pick direct action. Anybody ever heard of that guy? No. Good, because I don't think I've ever heard of him either. We can mark him out. Anybody remember what a phishing is?
More sort of a method of how hackers can get to hack you.
Is it a virus?
I don't think so.
No.
Get
It's what?
infected.
What is it then if it's not a virus? It's what?
It's an action of
Correct.
some.
But remember we said there was
Malware.
malware, right?
Oh.
There's malware, right? Which is a code that does something. And we said
It's a
in there
form of
was,
social engineering.
thank you very much. The threat is a type of social engineering. Is social engineering a virus?
No.
Okay, so we can mark him out. Now we got a flip of a coin here, and hopefully we can remember which one's which. Does anyone remember what a resident virus is?
It's the one in
This
memory.
Okay, so it's the guy in the
That was the
memory, right?
cute one. It stays in its house. It stays residing.
It always is in one spot and as where it, let's say where it attacks from, right? It's a threat vector is one spot, and we said it was
The memory?
It's the
okay.
memory.
Okay, and then now, do we remember what is the overwrite?
Overrides programs.
Okay, okay, and what else does it do?
And I bet it can override data also.
Okay, so now let's look and read again. So now some of us said phishing, none of us said this, and we said maybe this and maybe this. Let's read the question again. Which of the following are common that can present threats to clients and their data? Choose all that apply. So I believe we said no because this was social engineering, and we said no to this one. Do we believe that a resident virus is a threat to the client PC and their data? Do we believe this?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we believe that an overwrite virus is a threat to the client and their data?
Yes.
Yes.
Therefore, hopefully, if we play this game and figure out what the answers are, hopefully not, although we might not remember real good what the other ones were, but one other thing that helped us out here was choose all that apply. Therefore, if I eliminated two and it says choose all that apply, usually it's one more than one answer, right? So if we have any doubts and something like this happens to us, just try to eliminate as much as you can the ones that you know for sure are not. And then if you trying to flip a coin to decide and you're left with two, then usually there's five answers though that I'm aware of, right? Guys, I think it goes up to E if I remember these tests. Usually
One time I
E
got like
or
8.
more. Yeah, I got up to G once, yeah, but that's beside the point. The usual is up to E.
Would they ever ask which one is the most common and still give like two correct answers, just one of them being more common than the other?
If they say which one is the most common, they're asking for one answer, and it will be it won't let you select more than one answer.
Yeah, but does that ever come across or not really?
Well, the question will is a dead giveaway because I think it's either a circle or a square on the screen, and it will tell you if you can select more or not. They won't trick you on that. It will always tell you select two, choose all that apply,
Yeah,
and
no.
there's no trick. It either has the circle or the square, I believe.
Okay.
In other words, it's either a radio or a checkbox, if I remember correctly.
Kevin, are you trying to say will they answer a question of what is the most common virus? Is that what
Yeah. Yeah, that's the question.
Or
so that is
common.
actually a subjectable question. So they will
That's
most likely give you a
impossible to.
question
Yeah,
like that.
there's no way to answer that one.
Okay.
That's all like you said, that's all depending on you would have to tell me now what OS is it, what patches, what service no, I mean it's ridiculous. It's the plethora of the common viruses that are out there and what they're targeting. There's no way to. Now you could probably ask me what was the most damage or something like that, but then again, that's not gonna ask you that question. There's no way they're gonna ask you what was the most famous virus where. I don't think so. They're just
Nah,
gonna
that's
ask
gonna be
you about
security
the
policy.
family types. The family types is what they care about. That's all they're
Good.
looking for.
Thank you.
Right. Shoulder surfing is a type of identity theft where a sender where the sender of an email scans the reader into scams, I guess, not scans, scams the reader into responding with their personal data. Is this true or false?
False.
You say false too.
Hmm. Which of the following viruses overwrites code or inserts infective code into an executable? Would that be file infector virus, overwrite virus, boot sector virus, direct action virus?
overwrite virus.
Yeah, I vote for override virus also.
How about file infector virus? It seems like there's file in the thing.
And is that a family type that we reviewed?
Oh, maybe not.
Okay, anyone else? Questions? Anyone? 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 No? All right, I'll go with that one then. Next one. Spam and malware filters are enough to ensure that infected email are unable to bypass desktop server and gateway defenses. Spam and malware filters are enough to ensure that an infected mail message that infected mail messages are unable to bypass desktop server and gateway defenses. Is that true or false?
False,
False.
maybe.
I think false.
False.
Hence the word 0-day attack. Hopefully everyone remembers. Therefore, how can it always block? A blank is a malicious software that resides inside other programs.
Trojan B.
Trojan.
Everyone believes and agrees.
Yes.
All right, and let's submit. So yes, questions, doubts. Okay, now as this time, hopefully, we should be able to understand how critical it is and explain why security is important for IT professionals. Clients have a lot important data and information that they need to be able to protect. We need to be able to describe the most common types of threats or vulnerabilities that are out there, and obviously identify the different types of malware and social engineering threats. As we said, there's viruses within malware, there's worms, there's zombies, there's spyware, adware, rootkits, ransomware. There's different types of social engineering threats. We only mentioned a few there. And obviously, there is the actual attacks, the physical attacks, where you have your password attacks be brute or dictionary, rainbow tables, for instance. You also have your actual botnets, your zombies out there, man in the middles, or 0-day attacks. All these are different types of ways that security can be obviously compromised. On top of that, of the human nature of being able to violate the actual security measures and best practices that are out there. Any questions or doubts? Right. I believe that is where all she wrote on this one. If there are no questions, we'll stop